The Lord sent me to tell you to check your pockets. I know that's weird. Check your pockets. Check the inside of your coat for favor. Check under your hat and look at all the places that you forgot to look, because favor is still there. This morning I woke up and I put on my coat of many colors, otherwise known as Merlin's robe, to my daughter because it is a brilliant royal purple with all these gold stars. And as I'm going about my morning, getting ready for work and schooling my kids, I feel this scratch. Like what's scratching my leg? And when I go to look, it's a sticky note with the word favor. Well, this didn't come out of thin air. It comes from my prayer wall, but I've been not anywhere near my prayer wall in my robe because I don't sleep in it. In fact, my robe was on the opposite side of the room and my prayer wall is on this side of the room. So how favor got there, only God knows. You see, favor isn't a fickle thing like your enemies wish that it was. Favor is not finicky. Favor is not fair. And favor will follow you everywhere that you go. Take this cat named Joe, for instance. Well, Joseph had dreams in the Bible, and he was a very gifted dreamer. And just like a little brother would, he wants to tell all of his brothers about all of his dreams, which was a big mistake, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it was a lesson for his brothers. But in the end, his brothers decide that they will take the coat of many colors that their father has given him, along with all that favor that they see dripping off of him, because he's the favorite of the father, you know. And they decide that they're going to kill him. So they throw him in a well. But you know what? Favor always rises to the top. And they decide that in their conviction and their smarticles in this moment, that God sees what they have done. And that if God sees this, then he's surely going to come after them. So maybe instead they should sell him to this slavery wagon that just happens to be approaching. So that's what they do. They bring him out and they're like, hey, we got something for you right here. And in the meantime, they're taking this coat of many colors and they are rolling it in the blood of an animal they have slaughtered, which in and of itself is witchcraft, because they perverted the way the Old Testament would sacrifice animals to God, and they had sacrificed this in the name of their selfishness. I just want you to do the math real quick. Joe starts a slave, but Joe is a nice looking slave because people who are favored often come off attractive, even if they're not. The anointing is attractive and it'll draw everything to you. Everything. So while he's in slavery, this woman that is the wife of an influential leader comes up and she wants her some of Joseph, and Joseph says no. And she says, if you don't sleep with me, I'm gonna tell everyone that you forced me. And he won't. So she does, and he lives through the slander and he's thrown into prison, which is actually in those days a really gross dungeon. Well, Joe's been through everything and done nothing. Seems unfair, right? I guess. But at the end of the day, God always gets his way, and it comes about that the king has a dream. But the king calls on all the occultists and the magicians and all these people, and nobody knows what the king's dream means. And the king, in his great desperation, says, what about that Joe guy? Where's the guy with the dreams? So he's called out from the dungeon into the very chambers of a king, and he says, what does this mean? And Joseph gets it accurately. Joseph becomes a great leader. In fact, later on, he has to be in the presence of his brothers. And his brothers kneel down before him just as they did in a dream. And they say they're sorry. But you know what favor does? Favor could have taken them to the gallows. Favor could have paid it back. Favor would have had every right. But favor said, I already forgave you. Favor said, no big deal, because what you did to me was only for my good. The enemy meant it for my harm, but God meant it for my good. You meant it for my harm. God meant it for my good. So maybe you should check your pockets. Maybe you should check the inside of your coat. Because just like me, I had my coat on this side and my prayer wall on this side, and somehow they got mixed up. Because favor is not something that you can put on yourself, honey. Favor is something that is put on you by the King of Kings and can't nobody pluck it off. Your coat can be gone. They can sign your name to something. They can slander you. They can do everything and anything they can think within their power. But when God signs his name on you, that favor is irrevocable. And before you know it, you're sitting in places you never dreamed. And before you know it, you realize that your coat has had favor on it all along. And before you know it, you realize you could run outside naked and still be covered in favor and not have to have a single piece of paper on you, a single colorful coat on you, and have anybody like you or anybody even believe what you are saying, even though they lie on you on the daily. Favor says your dreams will come to pass whether they like it or not. Favor says one day they will need what you have and you'll be the only one that can do it. And favor, baby, it ain't fair. But favor is put on you by the Most High. And if you got it, you can't lose it. In fact, today I was going down the stairs and I realized that the favor that was on my coat had fallen onto my stairs. Not only was favor on my coat and on my being, favor was on the places I was walking. I was leaving favor in my pathways. And so do you. God's favor is so magnificent. The anointing is so strong when God places it on you because you were crushed so heavily for it, that everywhere you walk, little drops of oil are left behind, and those that walk behind you just might benefit off your favor. Those that come after you might live in your anointing. How do you know? And because Joseph got the dream right, so many things were different. Because Joseph wasn't afraid to speak up, he never would have made it there, even though it looked like God had forgotten and forsaken him. What had happened in his brothers trying to kill him was actually God promoting him. He went from a whale to a palace, and only favor can do that. So check your pockets. You might be missing something that God sees in you that nobody else sees. Don't miss it. I'd hate for you to miss it. Favor ain't fair, but it sure is fun.